one's the best crypto asset? Bitcoin's the best crypto asset. Which one's the best crypto asset? Bitcoin's the best crypto asset. Which one's the best? 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 What's the second best?
This is Discover Crypto, and the markets are pumping. Bitcoin is up nearly 10%. The altcoins are up. Everything is shooting up. Let's go ahead and hit refresh because I don't think 8.4. Yeah, 8.5% move to the upside. ETH is up nearly 10%, 9.3%. XRP, huge pump, 7% pump for XRP. Solana with the double-digit gainer here, 10.2%. Even Cardano is having a green day here. I know, DZ likes that. We have Hype is up. Everything is up across the board. Canton, somewhat slowing down, but not surprising since it's just been so bullish. Jupiter, Zcash, Pump.Fund leading the way here and really not too much into the red. You see how quickly we get into the stable coins there. We're going to look at the Bitcoin chart. We're going to look at our levels. I'm joined here today. We got the trio. We got everybody back.
No. Well, yeah, everybody's here, but I think Drew's in the background working on another video, but he is here. Yeah.
Yes, sir. He's always lurking, chat. Smash the like button for Drew lurking in the background with his ghillie suit. There might be a chance. I'm not saying guaranteed. Maybe you'll see him float by in the ghillie suit behind in the window over there. But TJ, how are you doing today? It's a green day. You're the perma bull.
That's
so go
right.
ahead and hype yourself on the back here.
No, it is a green day. I'm very, very feeling good. Smash the likes if you love these green days. Almost forgot what they feel like, but Bitcoin can wake up and choose to go violent to the upside, clearing obviously that level I think yesterday or maybe
let's actually zoom into the 20-minute candles here, and you can see how perfectly these levels were playing out. This is Tuesday around noon, so this is before the show. We started talking about this level. We have our show. It's right around this period. And then boom, coming back down to our level. And this is the level I gave you in my video. And if you put this as your take profit one, you did very well. Looks like Bitcoin started to go down and now coiling back up for another move to the upside. So once again, the levels that we're playing out, we're putting down on the ground for you to see. We're laying the stripes on the road. We're not trying to hide it behind fog and smoke and mirrors. This is where we're saying Bitcoin's going, and it is hitting these levels. I did close my long. The Discord TJ has been popping off. I'm about to pull it up right here.
No, that's true. That's what I was about to say. If you're in the Discord, I know you're making money. We had several trades around 100% there overnight. So a lot of trades rolling in. But yeah, those levels looking good. If we can continue to flip those into support, that's very, very strong. I mean, they've been, there's got 200%.
It started about 8 this morning. I didn't realize how many trades.
40.
Yeah, I feel good. Okay, then finally we get one loss, but let's check how many wins in a row, and then nice profit there. There you go. There you go. Just rolling in the trades, rolling in, and like I said, I have closed mine, but it looks like a new trade has just hit. This is 3 minutes ago. Potential injective long. I'm live though, so I'm gonna hold off on this trade, but. Folks, join our Discord. We have a link down below. We're giving you these signals. We're not trying to gatekeep it. You do have to just sign in, maybe one of our affiliates, give us the UID, and then you get all the access.
Yeah, free. I mean, we just want to see our community win. I know the Disco fam is printing recently. I did want to quickly mention though a couple. This didn't come up when on Arrow finally showing signs of life. If it could flip back above 40, that's a very key level for Aerodrome. Just looking very strong on the longer time frames. If it can get back above these levels, kind of very similar to Bitcoin's level, that's extremely bullish. So DeFi, Aerodrome, Jupiter, I still always want to call this MakerDAO, but Sky Finance, a lot of DeFi still showing strong signs of life. But yeah, the big dog, Bitcoin with the 8% pump, Solana moving well, everything moving up very, 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 very strong is something you really, really like to see. Now, I know a lot of people are calling for this, like higher lows or lower highs, I'm sorry, and maybe going back down. I'm still firmly in the camp that 59K wick down that we experienced was the bottom. I don't believe we're going much lower. I know I'm kind of on an island there. I think a lot of people are still in it's going significantly lower into those 40K ranges, and I don't see it. I'm still very bullish on this generally, and the fact that we didn't get dramatic pullbacks after some of these global tensions. I think they'll resolve quickly. We're seeing to me, the ISM, PMI, the manufacturing indexes, and the fact that it looks like the economy's performing very strongly. You got the president of the United States, which we're going to talk about this a little bit later in the show, calling for the Clarity Act. Federal Reserve bending the knee. There's actually a lot of systemic major changes happening. Still firmly in the camp that we're going to have a very, very bullish, mid to late summer, and really experience, dare I say, the super cycle that we didn't get in 2025. I'd still believe we're going to experience that here very soon. So we'll see.
All right, yeah, we do got some people agreeing, with, I would say, more of the bears. We are going to 40K. Crypto King with a good question. Isn't it a little late to long? That trading quant has a breakout strategy. So you don't try to catch bottoms. What you do is try to catch out the breakout. So we're seeing Bitcoin, we're seeing XRP, we're seeing a lot of altcoins break out of these symmetrical triangles. And so you might feel a little bit late, but when you really zoom out and just realize this is part of a strategy, look at it this way. If you did the long or a short strategy, like, well, I feel like it's too late. Well, it broke out of this support and then it just kept dumping and dumping and dumping. And so it's going to be a little bit of a breakout strategy, a little bit different than, what a lot of traders are used to, for sure.
Yeah, I do want to mention this. This was something I was looking at yesterday. VVV, Venice. It has been recommended by Claude, and it seems to be kind of a favorite of a lot of these AIs. So I've had a full range pool going. I think I got in at around $6 or $7, and obviously it went down dramatically from there, but had a full range pool earning the whole time. And yeah, recently just absolutely. Is it still going up today? I haven't looked at it today, but yeah, as of yesterday, it was up like 200% for the month. Yeah, it's close to my original entry, but the amount of tokens I've earned at the bottom there when it was at $1, $2, something like that, has been paying off nicely. So that's one of my flyers. I don't have a huge amount in it. I've got small positions in a lot of these smaller altcoins, but that one could turn into be a preferred token for these AI agents, which is kind of the big X factor going into this next crypto cycle, is what AI agents use. And we've got some stories about that a little bit later in the show.
And I don't want to just come back to TJ's prediction here. So, we are looking at Bitcoin on the weekly. TJ, you were saying we are not going below this little wick into 60K, 59K. That's kind of where you're planting your flag here, huh? All right. So, we'll see, folks. We will see. I am thinking we're in a bullish environment. I do think we're going to push up to about 75, potentially 80, get a lot of the bears trapped, but I think we revisit the 50s. At least that's what I've been saying in a lot of the videos. But let's get chat involved. Don't worry, I'm not going to bother you guys too much, but I do want to get you involved for this one. Historical patterns show every February that ended in red is followed by a red March every single time. We got a red February in 2026. Is March going to also end red? So type in R, type in G. You think it's going to be red or green? And you can see every red February gives us a red March. Is it going to break the streak, TJ? What do you think? Is March going to be red or green?
I think it's going to be green. We're obviously off to a strong start already. I think March will be green because I also think there hasn't been traditionally too many 6 red months in a row, or 5. So what is that, 5 there? I thought we were at 6, but there's been very few. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down there. So yeah, I guess there's been 5 one other time, it looks like.
So you're right with the 6. What people did is on March 1st, when it was red for an hour, they were just saying 6 monthly candles red. It wasn't. It was just clickbait.
Gotcha. But either way, I at least very quickly scanning that thing, I don't see more than 5 in a row. So we're due for a green month. That
just
one right
this
there.
Period right here. The 2018, 2019 gave us 6, and that's, I think, the only time.
Yeah. So I think we're due for green. We're due for some relief here. Even a lot of the bears, I know Benjamin Cowan, I think, was calling for up in March, back down in April. Which he's tracking it more on like the midterm year cycles, which I think is, obviously this is a midterm year, so it's something to keep an eye on. But I'm still in the, I think the Clarity Act will get done. I think we have some general liquidity coming back into the market. I think a lot of these global tensions, I think there might be even some curveball coming with some of the tariffs getting worked out sometime in the middle of this year. So there's a lot of factors at play. But at the end of the day, really what drives bullish environments is expansion versus contraction, whether you're talking about liquidity or if you're talking about purchasing and manufacturing, which again, I mentioned that the more I'm studying Plan C and this business cycle and the the ISM type cycle, that to me is what is really driving the largest growth in Bitcoin. There's all kinds of other factors that can influence it, but that if you're trying to cut out the noise and boil it down to like the key signals, RSI obviously matters a lot. Net unrealized profit and loss, that sort of stuff. And so to me, Bitcoin has been extremely oversold under 70K, under previous cycle all-time highs is another very simple one to look at for me. And almost always you go a little bit under the previous cycle all-time highs. Like the previous examples would be going a little bit under 20K. This time, previous cycle all-time high 69K. We had a decent amount of time to get at 65. You got that wick down to 59. And one thing I've noticed in my almost decade of doing this is whatever that actual bottom is, it generally doesn't last too long. You get a while to buy a little bit above that. So say that 59K wick would be the one, and you get a while to buy in the 63, 64,
there's
65.
an accumulation into a flush out, basically.
Yes. And usually that quick flush isn't very long. And so again, just time. And I know this is breaking from the 4-year cycle. 4-year cycle says we'll go down all the way until October. And, that's where a lot of these people are getting these 40K numbers from. My gut and experience, and even a lot of the data that I'm looking at right now says we're not going to be down only until October, but we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out.
I will agree with you with that. I do think the drawdown will not last a year. Typically, you will get a year drawdown. If we just look at 2021, these are weekly candles, so we should see this right around 50. Look at that, 300 and that is it right there. That is it right there. So right there at a year, Bitcoin would fall. And we go to 2017, just real quickly here. If you look at that right there at a year, Bitcoin continued to fall. And so TJ's prediction is, we won't dump until October of 2026. I'm with you on that. I do agree. I do think we find a bottom before October.
And so here's the $1 million
June, July
question.
Is what my analysis has been pointing me towards over the past, I would say, couple months here.
Yeah. So we're in agreement on that. We just may have a little bit difference of what level it might actually hit by June or July. So, but here's the real question that everybody wants to know is now a good time to buy Bitcoin? And I unequivocally say yes, absolutely. Yeah. Even if it does go slightly lower, even at 72, it's still a good time. But obviously at 65, 63, 64, 67, 69, anytime you're getting below the previous cycle all-time high is an incredible time to buy, in my opinion.
I would 100% agree. In a strong asset being down 50%, yeah, probably going to be a pretty good time to buy. Speaking of assets, let's look at the S&P 500. So we have Bitcoin soaring, altcoin soaring, S&P 500 is starting to soar here. These are 1-hour candles. What is going on? What is this bullishness? Well, we're seeing a little bit of an off-ramp for the escalation with Iran. This is breaking from the New York Times this morning. In public, the leaders of Iran, they're refusing to negotiate with Trump. But a day after the attacks began, apparently there are operatives from Iran's military intelligence reaching out indirectly to the CIA to discuss terms for ending the conflict. They say, according to the Times, the officials are skeptical, at least in the short term, that either Trump or Iran is really ready for an off-ramp. Still, the offer that was made through another country's spy agency raises questions about whether any Iranian officials could put into place a ceasefire agreement with the Tehran government. The offer was described on the condition of anonymity to the New York Times by Middle Eastern officials and officials from a Western country. Israeli officials who do want a week-long campaign to inflict maximum damage on Iran's military capabilities and perhaps cause the government to collapse. They have urged Washington to ignore this approach. For now, the offer is not considered serious in Washington. So we're starting to see signs percolating that there could be an off-ramp. The markets are loving this. There are some extra details. That article just went on and on and on. But the terms are including Iran to basically abandon or curtail the missile and nuclear programs, abandon support for their proxy groups. In return, Trump suggested He will allow the surviving leaders to maintain power, suggested they would employ the Venezuelan model, and it remains unclear if a deal is feasible at this point in time. So the Venezuelan model, famously, there was not a regime change. Took the president, left the vice president, same party, same administration, same officials. Now maybe slightly more favorable towards Washington, D.C., though.
Yeah, and it sounds like, at least from what I saw, he's backing off somewhat of the people rising up for a full turnover. To your point, the regime change, and kind of leading somebody that had some power and influence in there, but obviously somebody that's going to be a lot more agreeable, I guess, with the U.S.
You know, their
tariffs.
words are saying one thing, their actions are doing another. There were forces within Iran that were responsible for the crackdown with the public protests. They're targeting the people who crack down on the protesters. So they may be saying, yeah, we want to keep your regime, but what they're doing is they're creating the environment for the protesters to take to the streets and maybe topple internally. But again, you know, this is speculation, a lot of moving parts. This is 4D chess played upside down, underwater in a space capsule. And so, you know, people trying to do these little cursory, oh, I see this, and this is what it means. We don't really know what's happening in the back channels and the diplomatic cables for sure.
Yeah,
but I do want to get back to Bitcoin. You know, we do have in the title here, BlackRock betting big. What are we talking about? BlackRock saving the day. U.S. Bitcoin ETFs added 225 million, but BlackRock took us out of the red. I have the numbers right here. The gains were largely driven by BlackRock with 300 million in inflows, offsetting nearly 100 million in outflows. And we scroll down, I think they have it here. Let's see, Eric Balchunas, one day flow on the right side here. See Fidelity and Grayscale selling tons and tons of their Bitcoin ETFs. Look at BlackRock to save the day, putting us at 200 million in the positive for the month. Also right around 200 million for the week. $1.4 billion. Slowly climbing out of the hole because, you know, we are red for the year, largely due to Fidelity. You can see here down on the bottom, they sold $1.1 billion worth of these Bitcoin ETFs so far this year. But yeah, BlackRock, TJ, we do say BlackRock's the canary in the coal mine. I'd pay more attention. I've said this for probably since they've launched. I pay more attention to what BlackRock's flows are versus the overall flows. In a weird way, I feel like they're more connected to the insiders.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, BlackRock is the 800-pound gorilla in the room. They are the largest asset manager. They do have some of the strongest, most wealthiest clients in the world. So they're the ones pushing to tokenize all their funds. And in a lot of ways, they're the ones, in my opinion, really pushing for actual full-scale adoption of Bitcoin and crypto. And again, you hear a lot of this stuff with the Clarity Act. You've got Brian Armstrong out there and Trump out there and all these different, you know, characters talking about, you know, fighting on different sides. But really, I've said this before and I'm going to echo it again. The battle I think we're witnessing right now playing out as it comes to regulation around crypto is BlackRock versus JP Morgan. Two massive power players that have been established with, you know, all of some of the biggest and oldest money in the world. BlackRock is 100% moving towards a new digital future with Bitcoin and Ethereum, and JP Morgan is still very, very resistant to that. And that's part of what Drew is going to talk about in the video tonight. And we've got kind of some context on that a little bit more into the show. So
I love exposing the big banks. I love exposing anyways, let's move on. Let's talk about Kraken here. Kraken getting a Fed master account in a crypto first, a watershed milestone in the history of digital assets. We have the breakdown right here. So this is the first crypto firm to win access to the bankers inside rails, this Fed core payment system. I'll give you a little description in a second here. So they won access to this payment system and is the first crypto firm to be able to move money on the same rails used by thousands of banks and credit unions. So this isn't one of those, well, only 3 banks have access, 5 banks. This is a thing that thousands of banks have access to. Mm-hmm. And we finally have a crypto company that has the same access here. So this will allow Kraken to handle transactions more quickly and seamlessly for their big clients and professional traders. They're not getting the full range of services that banks enjoy with the Fed, such as payments of interest on the reserves held at the central bank. But the approval does mark a major win for the crypto industry. Having a Fed master account give them direct access to FedWire. This is something we've covered in the past when we've talked about Swift, talked about Chainlink, talked about Connexus. This is a critical interbank payment system that handles more than 4 trillion in average daily transfers. The Kraken unit, which is a special type of Wyoming state bank charter geared towards crypto companies, previously relied on intermediaries to move money to other firms, and their Wyoming branch applied to the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City, and now they got the approval. The prospect, now let's give the banker side. The prospect of fintechs and crypto firms securing access to these payment rails has alarmed many traditional banks. Just last month, the Bank Policy Institute and other trade groups warned that even limited access could threaten the U.S. payment system and financial stability. EJ, what do you think about that statement? Is allowing Kraken a banking license going to just undermine the U.S. banking system?
No, obviously allowing Kraken a banking license isn't going to do it, but the lack of the ability for banks to innovate could undermine the banking system. And that's really the truth. They've been in a competitive advantage for a long time where they haven't had to innovate, they haven't had to adapt, provide better services because they used regulation to keep competition low. I mean, this is my daily reminder: don't sell your Bitcoin, don't sell your Ethereum, short the banks. I mean, banks, not saying they're all going to go to zero. I think some of the biggest ones that have huge balance sheets, they have time to shift and adapt and adjust, and they have a lot of pull and lobbying and regulation authority. That being said, the ones that don't adapt will fall. I mean, we've covered it time and time again. This is something Drew talks about a lot. The unrealized losses that a lot of these banks are experience or have on their balance sheets are enormous. And the reason they're so afraid is they don't have any money, and so they can't really offer you any yield. And a lot of these crypto neobanks and things that are coming, new financial institutions, are absolutely a threat to the business model that the banks have been getting away with running for a long time, because they don't offer great service. If you've ever if you're used to dealing with crypto and then you try to deal with a bank, it's one of the most frustrating experiences you've ever had. If you're a young person today, or even AI agents and a lot of these other things, there's very little incentive for you to go have a bank account with a lot of the new technology that's coming out now. So it's a long-term thing that they're afraid of. But yeah, they're terrified of people like Kraken and Coinbase offering you 4 or 5% on your savings account, because they simply can't compete with that. So it's their lack of innovation and their lack of their ability to compete that will do them in. It's not Kraken having access to the Fedwire or having access to doing reverse repos or anything like that. And then another gorilla in the room that these guys hate would be X, which I don't know, just a little bit of a sidebar here, but X payments, or what's it called? X money is coming. It's in beta and it's currently offering 6%. So this is another thing that they're absolutely terrified of. Huge user base. That Elon has said for a long time that he wants X to be an everything app and to be where you can buy, shop, sell, get your news, do all sorts of things on X. And, if you guys know his history, X.com originally was what PayPal turned into. And, there was, at the time, couldn't get it done. There wasn't the technology to facilitate it. Now there is. So yes, things like X money, things like, APY, yield on savings, is a massive threat. Not saying banks can't adapt, but if they try to resist and use regulation to squash competition, I think over time that's a losing effort.
And Trump is now involved. Trump threw his hat in the ring talking about these banks and what's going on. So this is a post from him. I want to say in the last about 12 hours or so. The Genius Act is being threatened and undermined by the banks, and that's unacceptable. We're not going to allow it. U.S. needs to get the market structure done ASAP. Americans should earn more money on their money. The banks are hitting record profits, and we're not going to allow them to undermine our powerful crypto agenda that end up going to China and other countries if we don't get the Clarity Act taken care of. The Genius Act was the first big step to make the U.S. the crypto capital of the world, and getting the Clarity Act is the next step to finish the job. And most importantly, keep this big and powerful industry in our country. The banks should not be trying to undercut the Genius Act or hold the Clarity Act hostage. They need to make a good deal with the crypto industry, because that's what's in best interest of the American people. This industry cannot be taken from the people of America when it is so close to becoming truly successful. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. More interesting is that this tweet came after, or his Truth Social post, this came after he met privately with CEO Brian Armstrong before he criticized the banks over the stalled crypto bill. This is, anonymous sources here, but No one is denying this, and it does appear that, yeah, Brian Armstrong was in the White House. Donald Trump makes a anti-bank pro-crypto post. This is good news. But TJ, the $1 million question is, will this be enough to push the Clarity Act over the line?
It's this in and of itself, no, but I do think they'll get it done one way or the other. It will get done this year. I think there you go. The odds are going up dramatically as time continues. 70, high 70%. So
look at that. Just 3-5 days ago. This is just the 1 week chart here. So about 4 or 5 days ago, it was less than 50% odds. Now it is up to 76% odds. We're going to see it signed into law this year.
Yeah, I don't think it's a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And in some people might argue it's a matter of what exactly gets shoved into this bill by the time it does get passed, but it will get passed. Now, we've been jerked around with this so much. It was supposed to be December, it was supposed to be February, it was supposed to be March. Now we're here in April, and maybe it happens before November, all these sorts of things. So at this point, I just want to see it done. I can't really believe anything that's coming out of both sides. I think it's a lot of posturing and it's a lot of lobbying and trying to use the news. But this, I think it's for those of you that have been here for a long time. I can't understate the significance of having the president of the United States pushing so openly and so aggressively for true crypto adoption and innovation and regulation that makes this space flourish. I mean, that just ended up, if you told me that was happening in 2020 or 21 or 2017, it just was unheard of. Like, we even just getting somebody in the government to just mention the word Bitcoin or crypto was like, whoa, they said crypto. Now we've literally got somebody sitting as the president of the United States saying we need to get this done. It's critical. So to me, this is just a huge win. And I do want to come back to this real quick. I know we've already mentioned it, but these trades just keep
There's more.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Since we've been live, we're hitting more and more take profits. Let me see if I can get that on here. Yeah, here we go. So all take profits hit now on the Ethereum trade, 115%. All or TP1 on the very recent one, to the person asking, isn't it a little bit late? Because we're pushing up 73.5 right now on Bitcoin. So 83% there, 200% all take profits on the Curve trade. 70% on the Solana trade, 120 on the Doge trade, so they just keep rolling in. XRP trade hit 89%. So tons and tons and more trades incoming. Another long on ZK. So yeah, again, if you guys aren't in there, you're definitely, like he mentioned, it's a momentum based strategy. So when the momentum clicks, obviously you got to be willing to move fast, but it's pretty nice to be able to print Tether going up, down, or sideways. And if you're looking to trade, you're looking to learn, even just having a community. We've got a lot of good traders in the trading chat as well, kind of breaking down their analysis with long, big swing trades, or just if you just want, 200% on the link trade just hit. It just doesn't stop. So get in there, make some money.
Can't stop, won't stop. Let's actually look at Bitcoin, because you're right. The markets are moving, and they're moving in a serious way. 20-minute candles here. You can see Bitcoin blasting out of this resistance here, just kind of using it as a springboard. Bounced one time, and then like a fat guy on a diving board, boing up into the sky, up and to the right.
Yeah, just don't break the diving board. Don't want to head back to the depths, but yeah.
I did have a diving board. My mother's husband, he had a pool. This is in middle school. We had the neighbor across the street had a foreign exchange student, and this was a German, and this guy broke our diving board, jumping like he was a European gymnast qualifying for the Olympics. But he had such a good European mentality. He was so positive. It was like before current Europe. I remember my stepdad was just like, you know what? It was Lucas. Anybody else, I'd be kind of mad, but of course, Lucas jumped like a gymnast freak, and we weren't even surprised. So shout out to Lucas in Germany. I haven't thought about that guy in a while. Let's get back to the banks here. Jamie Dimon, he's frustrated at all of this. Boo. Can we get some boos in the chat? BOO, not honey boo boo emoji. Boos in the chat. Not boo earns. I'll also take boo earns. If you want to be a bank, become a bank. He is mad about the stablecoin providers and the intermediaries, the Coinbases, the Robinhoods, the Krakens offering interest on stablecoins. He says, well, we have all types of different rules, different regulations that you don't have to do, that we have to do. We have to file with the government with this. We have to be FDIC insured. We have to have all these regulations and deposits. But It's from Trump's former advisor here. Let's see, official title: Executive Director, Director of President's Council of Advisors for Digital Assets. That's a mouthful. The deceit here is talking about J.P. Morgan's recent statements, paying yield on a balance per se that necessitates bank-like regulations. That's not the issue. Rather, it's the lending out or rehypothecation of the dollars that make up the underlying balance. It's a fancy way of saying we have stablecoins that are backed by treasuries, one by one. You, since 2020, don't have anything backing my bank account. So,
That's
of
crazy.
course, you have more rules and regulations. The money's not even there.
Yes, it's crazy. I mean, yeah, it's insane that he would be out there saying that kind of stuff. Because yeah, like for those of you who don't know how fractional reserve banking works, for a long time it was a 10% for a very long time, where basically if you give the bank $10, they immediately turn around and loan out $9, and they keep $1 in reserve for your $10. Well, in 2020, like DZ mentioned, that went to 0% requirement. So now you go give the bank $10, they can turn around and loan out all 10 and have literally nothing in reserves for your money. That's why if you've ever had a decent amount of money there you go, right there. If you've ever had a decent amount of money in the bank account and you go to withdraw it and you're like, hey, I got 50 grand in my account, I want all 50. They'll tell you no. They will not let you do it because they don't have it. And it's just a big Ponzi scheme. And so, yeah, you gotta keep that Ponzi system in check through a lot of different ways. Whereas a lot of these crypto firms, like DZ mentioned, if you're doing stable coins, they are, for every dollar they have 100% reserves compared to 0% reserves. Dramatic difference there. And for banks to act like it's the same is an insult to your intelligence. I'll just say that.
Yeah, and definitely comparing apples to oranges, that is not a fair metaphor. They're doing two wildly different things, folks. But this is wild. We are 1 week away from Bitcoin history. 1 week until the 20 millionth Bitcoin is mined. My favorite thing, the remaining million is going to take 114 years.
Crazy.
Insane drawdown there. So that's, of course, from the halving reward being cut in half and half and half and half. Back to the banks, though. Morgan Stanley, they're about to do a Bitcoin ETF. They're going to work with America's oldest bank, BNY Mellon, and they're also going to work with Coinbase. So BNY, they handle the cash. Coinbase is going to handle the Bitcoin, depending on how you want to redeem or issue more of these shares. They're going to store its Bitcoin with Coinbase custody, and BNY is going to be the administrator, transfer agent, and cash custodian here. Bitcoin will largely be held offline, cold storage vaults where private keys remain disconnected from the internet to reduce hacking risks. A portion of the assets may temporarily move to trading wallets during the ETF creation or redemption activity. The ETF itself is a passive vehicle designed to track the price of Bitcoin rather than directly using derivatives or leverage. So another major bank bending the knee to the Bitcoin ETF altar. Now we have Morgan Stanley going to start shilling Bitcoin to their millions of clients.
Well, and realistically, I mean, this is being an investment bank, not necessarily a commercial bank. So to me, and I had meetings.
This isn't a lot of customers with overdraft withdrawals.
No,
these are high net worth individual customers.
Mm-hmm. And I'm actually pretty close with a guy who is an investment advisor for Morgan Stanley. I had a meeting with him not too long ago, and the guys over at Merrill Lynch, to kind of gauge where they were at with crypto, and they're moving extremely quickly towards Bitcoin and crypto. I'm not surprised at all to see this ETF coming out. I think you're going to continue to see more and more products and offerings from these type of investment advisors for people to get exposure to digital assets. So Bitcoin obviously being the main one, Ethereum coming number 2. And then I do think we will see some indexes over other ones. We're moving towards and setting up ourselves for accredited investors only, a fund where you can get exposure to a lot of the DeFi stuff that we're doing, where you get you're actually earning more Bitcoin and you're increasing your Bitcoin that you're holding. So that I think is a long way off from the big dogs to offer, but I do think we're going to be seeing a lot of spot offerings coming out, and that will create another, just like BlackRock's IBIT and many others, it will increasingly increase the demand for Bitcoin. And we just covered the supply is getting the new supply that's coming in is dramatically diminished, and the demand is going through the roof. So if you just do supply and demand economics 101, you want exposure to Bitcoin.
All right, we got a Pluto alien. Banks are doing exactly what FTX did, except they have fancy rules that make it legal. Exactly, folks. Exactly. All right, let's talk about Bitcoin signals. We kind of covered one of these charts already. I got 2 more charts. So we're going to look at 3 Bitcoin price charts here, or activities pointing to $80,000 Bitcoin. First is the invalidation of the, so we're calling it a bear flag, symmetrical triangle. I think, if you want to go, you could call it either way. We're going to be honest here. But yeah, breaking the structure here. Let's go to the 2 hour, make it a little bit cleaner. You can see, yeah, this is now giving us a potential target here. We've talked about this before. You see where you touch the top, where you touch the bottom. Nice little $81,000 Bitcoin. So that one looking very bullish. Chart number 2 or sign number 2 here. It's going to be CME futures gap. Where is our CME futures gap? We talked about it a long time ago. How many days ago was this? We pointed it out then, I think on that Monday. This is a month ago. These don't last long. I'll just say that these typically get filled a high majority of the time. Our CME gap is 79,600. That's another sign we're going to 80K. And then Polymarket. Let's just go straight to the odds here. What's the new updated? So this is a Polymarket bet. What price will Bitcoin hit in March? Only 41%. But we're now at 71% at 75K. This one seems like a pretty good bet. I'm not going to pull the trigger on it, but what would you bet on, TJ? And think you also want to make money. You don't want to just do the safe bet, get 30 cents on your dollar. Oh, I got $1.30 off my dollar here. Where would you put, say, you know what? I got $1,000. I feel risky today. You win 1,000 at Bitcoin conference, and you're in the green. It's house money. Yeah. Where do you put your $1,000?
Win 1,000 on the craps table, roll it into probably the 80K Bitcoin in March.
Yeah, that's better than 2-for-1 odds. And so, your 1,000 turns into like roughly 2,200.
Or here's what I'd probably do, and again, I'm not an expert at this sort of stuff, but just anecdotally gut, I would probably split. If it was $1,000, I'd probably throw 700 or 800 on the 80K, go back up.
I like that.
And then another couple hundred on 85 because you're really paying out on 85. So like risky. 200 on 85 and then 800 on 80.
All right, Chad, where are you putting your $1,000? Some people coming in at 80, some people coming in at 75. I do think we were up to 85. I like that strategy.
Yeah, we were at 73.4 just a few minutes ago, I think. So
this is probably going to have, I don't want to say very different odds, but I think this is going to change pretty strongly in the next 20 minutes. So
did you refresh this right before? I'm curious if you do a refresh, do they change it all?
This has updating API.
Oh, it does.
I think.
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure how often it does it. Oh, wow.
Oh, no. There you go.
It doesn't. Yeah. Big difference.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm still in that. So yeah, that I would still split 80 and 85 because I think it's very like 35.
We got some bears in the chat, man.
Always got bears in the chat.
Sell Opera saying I'm going with 35K.
Well, Laserface,
100 to 1 odds.
If you want to go to Vegas with us, we're going in. When is it? April?
Yeah, it's like April 3rd through 5th, maybe.
And we actually have a link in the description where you get a discount on your tickets. If you guys are coming to the Bitcoin conference, we'll be there. It's at the Venetian again this year. I think it's April 28th, or in change. So yeah, come hang out with us. Come, let's play some craps. I haven't played.
Yeah. So use the link, save money on the tickets. If you are going, don't pay retail price like a sucker. And if you just use Discover as your code Discover at checkout, I think you're going to save 20% if I'm not mistaken there. Look at this, Google 10. That's only 10%. I love that. I use Google to find the Bitcoin conference. Someone blasted this to the top of the search rankings, and then they're just getting like little references here.
Yeah.
I wonder if it'll pay for itself. But
make sure you book your room through the Bitcoin conference too, because that's a substantial discount. I want to say like 50% when you book your room if you're staying at the Venetian. If you book through their block, it's a significant discount compared to what's showing on the Venetian website.
Code Discover at checkout, folks. So use code Discover. Now let's talk about, speaking of Bitcoin, we kind of alluded to the story earlier, TJ. Fascinating story. What is AI going to use? Someone did a study. They looked at 36 models. I think they did 900 iterations here. This is from, maybe not the most unbiased source, Bitcoin Policy Institute. So they studied 36 AI models, a lot of iterations, and they found Bitcoin is the top choice in 48% of responses. And this is using AI models, and they're preferring Bitcoin over stablecoin and other forms of money for different financial situations. Very few want paper cash. Makes a lot of sense there. Bitwise CIO Jeff Park said the most obvious explanation for stablecoins not doing better is stablecoins can be frozen. Bitcoin cannot. 0 of the 36 models chose fiat as their top overall preference, making digital money convergence one of the most universal findings. I went straight to the source here. Bitcoin, here's their actual results. So 9,000 controlled experiments with 36 different models. You can kind of do the math there. So that's going to be, what are we looking at? 3 of them make 100. So 30 of them make 1,000. So what are we looking at? 27,000. So a lot of iterations here. 91% chose digitally native money. So let's keep scrolling. Let's keep scrolling. This is what AI agents chose, how they choose to transact and store value. So if you had to store value, I want Bitcoin, followed by stablecoins, followed by fiat, followed by altcoins. You know, I don't know what prompts they're using. 48% chose Bitcoin overall. 79% chose it as a long store of value. Everyday payments, though, 53% are going to choose stablecoins. And this is also pretty interesting. The 9,000 tests, 86 times, TJ, they invented their own currency.
Interesting.
Are we cooked?
No. I mean, it's I'm deep down an AI rabbit hole, especially with Claudebot and all that sort of stuff. This is interesting to me. I think this largely has to do probably with the amount of information that's out on the internet right now. But the key to factor, and you've probably, I think I heard you mention in this yesterday, Bitcoin unfreezable. Stable coins could be frozen and canceled. So yes, not surprising that they want to hold long-term Bitcoin, but maybe use stable coins for day-to-day transactions. But that would be the biggest difference, in my opinion, between Bitcoin and stable coins. Banks, they can't really use. They can't KYC. Your AI agent can't create a bank account and use it. They can absolutely use a digital wallet and create payments and actually interact in the real world. Coinbase, I don't have it in front of me, but they have a ton of AI agents within their organization that have their own wallets and do operate this way already. Many big providers are working on payments for AI agents. It's the X402 payment protocol. And I absolutely believe that is going to be a big driver over the next, I'm always bullish on the timeline. So it's probably not a year or two. It's probably more like 3 to 5 years as these agents really, and maybe even 5 to 10 as agents really start to enter the workforce. But I do believe AI agents, crypto demand will be absolutely massive and be a driver of the industry as time goes on. I do see the AI and crypto industries and traditional DeFi and fintech all coming together very, very soon.
That's what the Epstein email suggests, TJ.
Yeah, there you
I'm
go.
just joking. I'm joking. I started listening to that pod. It gets crazy. I'm about an hour into that thing. What was that guy's name again? You're telling me about yesterday?
Oh, Simon Dixon.
Simon Dixon. Yeah, very, very interesting. When I'm done, I'll share my thoughts on it. TJ, you know what I found fascinating about this? Just this graphic right here. So this is the average Bitcoin preference by lab. What is different about OpenAI from these other AI models? OpenAI is founded by Sam Altman, or ran by Sam Altman. It's gray area for the founding there. But Sam Altman, he has an altcoin. The alt man has an altcoin. So the one where the CEO has an altcoin is WorldCoin. That's the one that doesn't want Bitcoin. Sam, did you code that in there? Are you coding it to want WorldCoin? I'm on to you.
Yeah, interesting observation. That's a great observation there.
Now, this is not so great. Crypto criminal caper with the cops as the conspirators. Yes, nice alliteration there off the top of the head. Former LAPD officer convicted of kidnapping a teen in a third of $1 million, $350,000 crypto robbery. This is a wild story. All right, so this police department officer, he's convicted. So I think we could just say this is a fact. He kidnapped a 17-year-old and stole this crypto 2 years ago in a home invasion. His name's Eric Halem, guilty of kidnapping and robbery after a 2-week trial. The court was told that the cop and 3 other men posed as police carried out a search warrant on an apartment rented by the 17-year-old who reportedly earned a significant amount of crypto. We got a crypto millionaire potentially, and the cops didn't like what they saw. Daniel, the victim, gave up a hard drive containing Bitcoin after the cop and his 3 friends threatened to unalive him. Now, this is the guy right there. This isn't the victim. This is the cop. Interesting. Let's just read some more of the article here. They wore vests that identified them as police. Then they gained access into the teenager's apartment by entering an access code obtained by a conspirator who rented out the apartment. I dug a little bit deeper. This was his landlord. So the landlord maybe knew this cop. I don't know. It was like, hey man, this cop, hey, I need you to look into this guy. I rent this apartment to this teenager. I don't know. Maybe he's one of those cyber criminals. The cops started looking into him. Well, he showed up to his house. And then with his friends, they restrained the teenager's girlfriend with the LAPD issued handcuffs, subdued the 17-year-old, also handcuffing him, and threatened to shoot him in his face if he didn't hand over his hard drive, according to victim testimony. Now, this cop was with the LAPD was still served as a reserve officer. He also had a side business, including luxury car rental company and an app that allowed actors to remotely audition. This guy is just an LA wannabe actor.
Yeah.
Want to be in the scene.
Sounds like a scammer to me. Like those are
luxury
like
car rental is sometimes a sign.
Yeah, that's definitely a sign. Letting people remotely audition over an app, I guarantee they had to pay to do it, and who knows if they're auditioning for anything real whatsoever. I guarantee they don't get the role, so it just sounds like a scammer.
Now the cop, hold on, TJ, this is crazy. Stick with me here. The cop didn't testify. He's going to be sentenced at the end of the month. His co-defendants, one of whom is tied to Israeli organized crime, the Jewish mafia, are yet to stand trial and have maintained their innocence. And this is all according to the LA Times, including the mafia connections and the pointing at his face and all that stuff.
There you go. Well, mafia still exists, I guess. They're out there.
Crazy stuff. All right, now we're going to be setting up with Chris Klein in a second. Let me share this Cardano chart. Cardano, I know there's some bulls out there. You're like, what's going on with ADA? I saw some indications that ADA is going to 20 cents. This is according to Hard Money Research. I want to look into it myself. Oh, they followed me. Oh, okay. You get a little follow. Oh, I follow them. Hey, what do you know? We're friends. We're cyber friends. I shake your hand. Well, they're pulling up the chart. I want to pull up the chart myself. They're just looking at this. I'm using the 3-day. I think they're using the 1 day there. Yeah, the 1 day chart. They're saying this is a little bit of a range, and we're testing the bottom of the range. But now with today's bullish action, we're starting to pump here. What did I find? I find every time we're near this bottom, we see the RSI start to kind of hit a bottom and start to shoot to the upside. You can see RSI giving us nice, very, very clean bull div, especially when you go to the 3-day here. Look at that clean bull div on the 3-day. This one, not so much. This one, nice RSI moving to the upside. If you look right here, RSI is starting to shoot up. When you look at when the RSI, when you're oversold and the RSI starts to pump, you don't really go too much lower. Here you could say, well, the RSI went higher, but there's a strong wick. But really the support for the daily closes didn't go lower at all. If you look right here, it didn't go lower than the wick. The candle bodies went a little bit lower. So after the RSI shoots to the upside, you don't really all too often come and revisit those levels. So I'm looking at this. I still think, if we're going to retest them, I think we got strong support at 24 cents. So 20 cents, I say nay. 24 cents, I hear you out. Quant going crazy. People like midnight here.
Yeah, Quant, it did. I just looked it up. It's consistent with the market. It's definitely moving. But yeah, a lot of people saying, talk about
that's nothing crazy.
Cardano selling for midnight. And it does feel like there are a lot of our Cardano whales moving towards midnight as well. You and I were having that conversation yesterday. Midnight, to me, very interesting project. Obviously closely tied to Cardano just because of the Charles Hoskinson connections. I do want to share this. You guys heard me talking earlier in the day. We do have the actual numbers out, and we're going to be bringing Chris in just a second. But I think this is, again, part of the pump we're seeing this morning. The actual ISM PMI data is out. We kind of had the projections, but expected 53, previous 53, the actual 56. Again, being over that 50 line is the key, and the more of those we can string together, the more likely we are to see an extended bull run there. But so this, to me, is one of my favorite metrics to watch, ISM PMI. This is the manufacturing and purchasing indexes, so to speak. So very, very, very important metric. One that has not been in the green consistently, even throughout the whole last bull market. When Bitcoin made its run to 125, it was still in the red. So if we can string these together consistently, I think that's what we will translate into some very bullish times for Bitcoin. But Chris, how you doing? Oh, there you are.
Hey everybody, how are you guys?
What's going on, man?
Doing great. How are you?
It's great to see you, DZ. I think this is our first time in 2026 together.
That's right. That's right. It's been years, or at least one.
At least 2 months, right? And in
That's
that
right,
2
that's
months,
right.
I've done 49 media interviews. It's been wild.
Holy cow,
It's been
that's
wild.
crazy.
They had me on the road like crazy. February was insane. I was Houston, Dallas, Austin, New York for 2 weeks, Miami for a week, and now I'm home back in Scottsdale for the first time in a while. So I'm thrilled.
Your next promotional tour, you should do it like Antiques Roadshow, where you go and instead of looking at grandma's antique silver set, you look at their portfolio.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. Actually, in Miami, I did a lot of that. Spent a lot of time with professionals like dentists, doctors, lawyers that are looking to maximize their retirement savings.
Can I ask you a question? Why do so many dentists become Scientologists? A little off the beaten path there.
I actually didn't know that was a trend.
I didn't know that was a thing
crazy.
either.
Is that really a trend?
That's a thing. That's a thing.
Is it dentist or orthodontist though?
You know what? I don't know about the distinction. I know it's I think it's the dentist though.
Huh.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, just quick reminder, Chris, with Bitcoin IRA, one of our partners here on the channel, one of the best places to get tax protection for your Bitcoin. I know you recently got back, like you just mentioned, from New York with the digital. Digital Asset Investor Summit? Is that what it was?
It was Pomp's Bitcoin Investor Week.
Bitcoin Investor Week.
And then I did a week of media. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the lady from Yahoo Finance. I call her Crypto Kryptonite. She is the most anti-crypto person I've met, and I had to go in studio with her for 10 minutes. And I think I might have won her over a little bit. Like I think I might have finally started cracking that show.
What was your champion argument? You know, what was like the one kill shot that you used that you think was most effective?
I actually walked in and we were in a commercial break, and I said, "Hey, I'm doing 20 interviews this week, and I'm the most nervous about this one." She goes, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "I just want you to know you have a reputation as the crypto kryptonite. Everybody in the game says that you're the meanest person when it comes to crypto, and you don't think it's logical, and you don't think it makes sense. And I hope at least we get through this interview, and maybe you find a path towards acceptance. But at the end of the day, my goal is just to explain that this is different than other monetary policies that are out there today." And that kind of took her guard down, where she was really friendly. And I actually joked on the way out the studio. I was like, she was way too friendly. I have a feeling that when I see her next time, she's going to rip me apart.
Yeah.
Okay. The disarming sales technique, like if you're in the car lot and they come out and you compliment the guy's suit or the woman's purse, and then they're totally disarmed. And
yeah,
now they're a little more open to that used car or
like
Bitcoin.
A non-compliment too, if you think about it, right? Like I was like, "Hey,
you're powerful, you scare us." That's what she wanted to hear, Chris. That's what she wanted.
Yeah, so that's what she needed.
What were some of the big takeaways from your time in New York and talking to some of the other investors? And this will lead into, I think, what we'll get your expectations of what you see prices coming kind of middle to later in this year, or towards the end of 2026. Because obviously you're talking to some pretty high level people, both usually long-term investors, but also people that are looking to position their retirement portfolios. And you kind of sit in an interesting world of the kind of the intersection between retirement, which is traditionally risk off, and Bitcoin, which is, at least so far, been considerably risk on. And so I'm curious to hear your take on that tension and kind of what how receptive people were and kind of what your expectations were. But so far, number one takeaway from your time in New York, what would you say the kind of word on the street is, or the pulse for this year is?
So first, with Pomp's event, there was no hoodies in the room, which I actually mentioned this with the Bitcoin conference that we saw each other at, and all of us saw each other in Vegas last year. TradFi is here, whether we like it or not. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but they're here, and that entire room was. There was not a single hoodie. Like, it's like DZ, like he's in a suit and tie now. Like he was in a suit and tie years ago, right?
Yeah.
Past that, I think the critical pieces I noticed was the fundamentals are still sound. No matter if I was on legacy media or if I was on crypto friendly media, the fundamentals are here. And today is a great green candle day. I have some cautious optimism around today. Like I saw some of the comments, like, is it go this way, that way? Where are we headed from this direction? I'm thrilled that we broke 70K because we just battled. We just kept hitting that, and pulling back. I think that's a big move. There's some amazing innovators that are doing incredible things. And I think Clarity Act is what everybody's waiting for right now. Like, what is Clarity Act going to look like, and how's it going to pass? And right now, I got to tell you, I mean, Trump is a global gangster. I mean, he's taken down 3 major players in like 2 months. We took out Venezuela's dictator. We took out a big drug dealer in Mexico, and now we've taken out the Ayatollah. And I don't think he's going to stop anytime soon. Like this is his second year of his last administration, and he's going to do some things that are going to be bold. And it might get a little crazy during the time that it happens, but I think when we look at the end result of this, it's going to be incredible. And then I think my biggest takeaway was that we're getting this at a discount, even at $73,000 today. I joked with the folks when I was at the stock exchange at NYSE. It was like the line for $150,000 Bitcoin is going to wrap around the stock exchange building 3 or 4 times, and
always,
and it always does. And the line for 67, 70, 72, $73,000 Bitcoin is going to be 3 or 4 people deep. And that's the thing that I'm really focusing on. Now, obviously, we're seeing more people doubling down and adding more in our platform because, like you said, I sit at this crossroads of long-term mentality and longevity of capital and Bitcoin, and it's a great place to be.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. And one thing that's interesting with all that, because I 100% agree that it's always the line is longer when the prices are high. But realistically, and if you guys are watching in the audience, I mean, I say this with the most sincerity. Now is the absolute best time for you to go and set up a Bitcoin IRA, because the whole purpose of it is the capital gains tax protection to the upside, being tax protected on your Bitcoin gains. And you're going to have way more gains from 65 to 70K than you are, you may still be a buyer of Bitcoin at 100, 125, 150, whatever it is. But if you're buying at 65K, you could, conceivably double your money in a very short period of time. And you want to have that tax protected. So realistically, bottom of bear markets, there's no better time to be opening an account with Bitcoin IRA. I know many of us here have. I know a lot of us in the audience already have. But if you guys haven't, I know it's one of those things that isn't always. It's somewhat of a time-consuming thing to do. It takes a little bit of effort. It's not something you can do in 5 minutes. But I will say one of the things that Bitcoin IRA does well is they make it very easy. You just call this 800 number up here. You get a real human being on the phone. Let me see if I can't scroll that off, but 877-936-7175. I will say your customer service is top notch, especially when it comes to crypto. And now is the absolute best time. I know I didn't prepare you for this, but I'm going to hit you with a question that it's not hopefully too complex, but there are some more. I know we actually have a decent amount of people that run their own businesses in the audience, being a, either entrepreneur, contractor, whatever it is. There's actually some specific things you can do with IRAs as a business owner too, correct? Where you can kind of contribute more than the
great question, TJ. You're absolutely right, because the tax code is actually more friendly to business owners than it is to W-2 employees. And I'm pretty sure, just like you and everybody else that's involved in Discover Crypto and a lot of this audience, is you probably have a side gig of some sort. And once you get to a side gig where you have K1 income, 1099 income, you're able to use tools like SEP IRAs and solo Ks. And if you're doing a Roth contribution this year or a traditional contribution, you're going to be maxed out between $7,500 to $8,000. If you're going to do a solo K, a SEP, or otherwise, now you're talking about $60, $75, almost $150,000 that you can write down on your tax bill. So if you had a banner year, let's just say you had an amazing year as a company and all your product is going out there and people are thrilled about it, now you can do something to really tuck that away. My big goal always is I want people to have success, but I don't want the government to have parity success. So when you talk about like people that win the lotto, right? Like somebody wins the $1 billion lotto that's out there. Well, the government just won $500 million on the tax law. if you do it the right way as a business owner, say you made $100 million, or let's just say, let's be reasonable and say your company made about $1 million this year. You're going to be able to knock down $150,000 if you build the right tax strategy around it with your retirement accounts. And this is a tool that they don't educate us on. What in my keynote in Miami, I brought up the great robbery of retirement, which is before our generation. We're kind of younger guys, but our grandfathers and our fathers, they believed in pensions. Okay, so it's a defined benefit plan. I'm going to put this money in. The company's going to put a little money in, and the company is required to mandate that I guarantee that income, that principal that I put in. And then about 1978, everything shifted, and they introduced the 401k, and it was designed for the guys that were making bonuses at the C-suite, the C-level, or the owners that were trying to tuck away their bonuses into tax-deferred settings. And then these guys had like a light bulb moment. They go, well, why don't we just do the whole thing that way? Like, why do we need a defined benefit plan? Let's just do a 401k plan. And here's where it went wrong, was the average user of that plan didn't understand that the game had changed. So now they're doing the same thing they used to do, which is I put money in, that my employer puts money in, and 5-10 years later, if the business goes bankrupt, it's my job to manage my retirement. It's not the company's job to manage my retirement. And so people are walking away after 20, 30 years at places like United and other businesses that went bankrupt with zero. Like, not only did they lose their job, but now their 401k is nothing because they just kept it in the shares of the company thinking that's how it's supposed to work. And this game has shifted in so many ways. If you can find a way, like I was joking with somebody in Miami, is like, if you can find a way just to be an Uber driver and do 10 or 15 Uber trips, now you're a business owner and you can find new tax strategies that are available to you. And our team over at Bitcoin IRA and retire.com and everything that we do, we're opening the doors to say, hey, like, find the best way to save money on taxes every year, whether you're W-2, 1099, K1. This is our specialty. We are masters of the retirement play.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice there. And I saw a lot of people saying this is a topic I love discussing as a contractor in multiple businesses. And obviously, a lot of people in the digital asset space don't have a high opinion of paying taxes to governments who waste your money, and maybe you don't agree with some of the people that are getting this money. But
especially you in Minnesota and California.
Yeah,
yeah. Well, that's DZ. That's why I left California. And honestly,
was it because Nick? Wait, not like, because Nick Shirley was investigating you, because of what they were doing with your tax money.
Yeah,
well, like,
exactly.
I mean, I'm a conservative guy. I've always been honest about that. Like the State of the Union, where the person or the congresswoman from Minnesota was like shouting out loud. You know that it's been almost 67 years since somebody had the balls to do something like that in the midst of a State of the Union speech, and at the same time,
liar at Obama.
And her entire state is under investigation for some massive fraud. That's where our tax dollars go. So we can't fix that problem, right? We pay our taxes and they go wherever they go. And maybe they're dropping bombs on Ayatollah. Maybe they're making daycares in Minnesota. We don't know. We can't figure that out. But what we can do is maximize the ability to not give as much dollars. It should not be parity. You should not make $1 and the government makes 50 cents and you keep 50 cents. It should be much better than that. And you use these tools to get you to that point.
That's exactly where I was going, is if you don't want to pay taxes, there are legal ways to, dramatically reduce your tax exposure and or pay little to no taxes legally. And things like Bitcoin IRA and a lot of that stuff you just mentioned are great ways to do it. It's something I know I want to set up the, what did you call it for the business owners? That's beyond just the regular
Solo K. It's called Solo K.
Yep, yeah, I need to set that up. It's actually, I've got that on my list of things to do today. So I'll probably be going back. I'll probably be calling that 800 number here shortly to get that set up.
And between you and your wife, TJ, who I met in Vegas, you can put upwards of $150,000 away, tax-free, tax-deferred, no capital gains when you trade and do all kinds of things. And then you can do Roth conversion strategies when you get to the later ages of your life, so that you can walk away tax-free on that whole thing.
There you go. She's probably watching right now. So, honey, remind me to make sure this happens, because I know she's strong in the camp of I don't want us to pay any taxes. And I'm like, well, we need to follow the law, obviously, but these are the ways you reduce your taxes or pay little to no taxes while following the law. So
legally. And that's the key word.
Yeah, it's all about legality. So I got to ask you guys a question, since you guys are always drilling me. We're at 72,000. 73, I guess we might have touched today. Where do you think we're going to be? What's your guys' landscape?
For what time period?
End of year.
Ooh, that's a big one.
That is a tough one. That is a tough one. I would say, as far as the more immediate over the next couple months, I do think we continue to pump. We're almost at my levels. I was going to say 75 to 80. We're flirting with that already. After that touch towards 80, I think that's when we maybe put in a lower low. But after that, I do feel like the bottom is in at that point for Bitcoin. I don't think we go below the 50s. After that, I think we are going to have an additional accelerated cycle. If you recall, we hit a new all-time high before the halving, which Bitcoin had never done in its history. And so I think we continue the trend of accelerated cycles.
I agree with you on that 100%. What about you, TJ?
Yeah, I think so too. I agree with the time. With him and I agree on the timeline. We're somewhat different on prices. Sometimes I'm the perma bull on the channel. I do think the chat saying 170, 150 easy. I don't know if 150 is going to be easy by the end of this year. 135. A lot of it to me. There you go. 444. Get your moon boots. I like that.
Take it easy there, moon boots.
I'll take 444 in a few years, but end of this year, we'll be close to all-time highs. So I do think we can retouch 100 to 125 by the end of this year, and officially kind of break the 4-year cycle, because that would be very inconsistent with the 4-year cycle. Definitely over 100, but I think optimistically 125 or revisiting near all-time highs by December of this year, I think is achievable. A lot depends though on what happens this summer. To me, I'm watching the Clarity Act. I'm watching some of this tariff
I'm watching
stuff.
this summer too. I've been in this game for a decade, and we've only had one exciting summer in my time period, which is 2019. Mm-hmm. We opened that year around $3,700 a Bitcoin, and without any clear catalyst, we soared to $14,000 around July, August of that year.
That was during the Bitcoin conference that year. I remember being at that was the year. I think it was the year El Salvador came out and announced. Maybe that was the year later. But
everybody was a year later. It was 2020 or 2021. There was no clear catalyst, but something. Mm-hmm. So my prediction, I agree with the 150s. I think we're going to reach new all-time highs, and I'll leave it at that. But I think this is going to be a really exciting summer session, which has not happened since 2019. Yep. For some reason, there's going to be something along the way. We've got a new Fed chair. We're starting wars, or at least the global gangster is handling business around the globe. Yeah. And I think there's going to be a moment in time where something's going to break. I don't know if it's going to be on the stock market, or it's going to be, gold's been really super volatile, as well as Bitcoin, as well as silver, as well as pretty much everything out there. The whole world, the macro world, as an economist, I'm looking back and going, this is something I've never seen in my lifetime. And I don't even know if there's books about it for the 2 decades before I was born, but something tells me this summer is going to be exciting. And that's what I'm watching for.
I'm right there with you. Yeah, like you said, new Fed chair. I think he gets his first meeting in June, where he's in the seat, and then they have the meeting, and so that will be interesting. We got Clarity Act, all the stuff with U.S. and China. I'm in the camp that we are gaining leverage against them with everything we're doing now, and they're going to be, my opinion, more willing to negotiate as time goes on. So we could see a strong reversal. And then what I was talking about right before you popped on, the manufacturing indexes. And if that continues to go up, the ISM PMI type numbers, which we posted, beat expectations, I think that has a lot to do with today's rally. If we can consistently have those numbers come out bullish, I think, to your point, we could it would be in a lot of ways the most hated rally in Bitcoin, because so many people, I feel like I'm on an island saying that we're going to be at new highs by the end of this year. So I'm glad to hear there's somebody else with me. So,
and just kind of quickly double checking those charts. If you look, we're just going straight up from July, because saying boring summer 2024, July, boring, scary, but boring. July, boring, and then finally, I see what you're saying. The 2019,
you know what I'm talking about with 2019. It was out of nowhere too. We were beat up. We were beat up as a market. And then if you look at the end of the year there, into 2020, remember that was the Bitcoin Cash, BSV, BTG. Remember all that infighting that was happening, and we hit capitulation at the end of that year. There was something that happened in that moment in time that was just very interesting to me. And I feel like we're walking into, remember this, the chart we're looking at right now, we were just a bunch of nerds in Bitcoin and we didn't matter to the rest of the macroeconomics, right?
Right.
Now we matter to the rest of macroeconomics. And if something like that happens again, some kind of white swan, I guess, if it's a black swan event that takes us down, I like they always talk about those things. This is an interesting time for me, and I'm going to watch really closely. And TJ, I'm thrilled that we're on the same page with this. But let's not forget, like, this is a really crazy time period. That's the one takeaway I have from New York is nobody was willing to say Bitcoin will do this, gold will do this, silver will do this. I see the comments where people are going to start taking profits from gold and move it to Bitcoin, maybe silver, do it to Bitcoin. Like the market is a totally different, this is a fresh canvas. So you need to think about that as you're investing in anything, that there's a fresh canvas out there.
Great point. I mean, that Drew keeps hammering. I don't know if you heard that Scott Bessent made a comment about another Bretton Woods type moment, which I think is exactly what you're talking about, where it's just a unprecedented type shift that we could experience, especially if it's towards crypto. And it feels like from a macro perspective with everything that's going on, there is a dramatic shift towards crypto. You've also got the AI revolution happening simultaneously, and you've kind of got, and from what I see, two big camps there. One saying everything's going to be great and there's going to be insane prosperity. Others are saying it's going to be a doom and gloom, and everybody's going to be at home with no jobs. So I lean more towards the optimist.
There's definitely some downward pressure on AI. Like AI is putting pressure on, as an investor over the years and a business builder. I can tell you that the value of a software company is totally changed. And we saw it with what Dorsey did and cutting jobs. We're seeing it, and that's part of where there might be a decoupling at some point. Right now, we're being treated like a tech stock as a crypto enterprise. And what happens next is there's real value underneath the assets versus there's real value underneath the code. And I think my big takeaway at the end of the day, because I know you guys only have me on for so long, and you probably got a bunch of other stuff to talk about, is as Americans, price value versus life value is really critical to me. So I watched Natalie Brunell and Russell Okung, a former NFL player, talk about this. And we get hyper focused here in the West of like, is it going up? Is it going down? What's happening next? When you talk to people in sub-Saharan Africa, you talk to people right now in Iran with the real, you talk to people in Venezuela, you talk to people where their currency is literally imploding. This is a life value moment, and we should start thinking as Americans of, okay, if I have one Bitcoin and we get to 2140 and they've all been created, there's 21 million Bitcoin. I have one of them, and there's 8 billion, 9 billion people in the world. This is a life value moment, not a price value moment. And that's, I think, if you can take a step back as an investor and say, hey, I'm just going to toss this in and I'm going to let it sit there for a little bit, and it's going to build a future life for not just me, but my next generations and my grandkids that are unborn, my great grandkids that won't exist. These are the moments that if you go back in the 1920s, you look at Kennedy's dad, you go back, and all these times they were making these same decisions of life value versus price value. And we all have that opportunity sitting right in front of us right now.
I agree. I think that's great advice. And again, using the Bitcoin IRA vehicle for your long-term holdings is exceptionally key, and you're going to be very glad you did. I'm still firmly in the camp over the long term. We see $1 million Bitcoin, multi-million-dollar Bitcoin within my lifetime. But that's one of those things that, again, it sounds a little, out there, but it's really not. I mean, we covered on the show today, there's only, is it today or this week? We have mined the 20 millionth Bitcoin. So there's only 1 million left to be mined until the year 2140, like you just mentioned. Getting one stashed away for the long-term future. If you could buy one Bitcoin, I was going to say 65,000, 73,000 as of today, put it in a tax protected vehicle and watch that turn into over $1 million.
And don't forget this. So I keep all the articles that I've ever been in. This is the New York Post from May 13th, 2022. We all remember that moment. Remember when Alameda and Luna and FTX?
I'll never forget it.
Look at that. And that's exactly what we just lived through. And then what happened just a year later? What happened just a year later? So keep that in mind. And don't forget my last little shill here. I think it's March 15th. You can save up to $2,000. Get rewards up to $2,000 for opening your Bitcoin IRA account. It's the difference between making smart decisions in Bitcoin and really smart decisions in tax saved and tax advantage Bitcoin. So TJ, Daisy, it's always good to see you guys. Sorry, I'm not in my typical studio. They're reconstructing it. Thank you to the Discover family. You guys are always been just great people. I appreciate you guys.
No, we
You're
love
my
seeing you
favorite
too.
finance bro in a quarter zip.
Thanks. I didn't. You texted me and said drop by today. I wasn't even ready. I wasn't even ready. But I love your suit always, man. I love your suit.
Appreciate it, man.
We appreciate it. Good to see you, Chris. We'll see you again soon. We'll see you at, I'm sure you'll be at the Bitcoin conference as well this year.
I'll see you in Vegas next month.
All right. Awesome. Looking forward to it. Take it easy.
Speaking of suit, you want to see what my fat head did, TJ? I got a fat face.
Oh, no.
Tensile strength of the button. It was just too much for my noggin. You ever hang a shirt and so you'll do a high button and just only have the one button and it's on the hanger?
Yeah.
I knew it was going to be close. I was like, I'm going to risk it for the biscuit.
No, I always, I do. It was funny when I hang my shirts, I do the top button and the second or third button.
All right, I'll admit, TJ, I was actually going for the cholo look. I was only going to have the top button done. I was just going to let it. It was going to flow, and I was going to do a do-rag or a bandana, but end up ripping. So I'll wear the suit. I'll wear the suit. We do got some XRP charts I want to share with you, everybody. XRP targeting a breakout, 195. Great inflows. When you look at the year to date, we covered, Bitcoin's in the red, ETH's in the red, multi-assets in the red. There's basically two bright spots. That's XRP and Solana. Of course, Chainlink does have a consecutive streak of weekly inflows. There's not been a single outflow for Chainlink in 2026. But XRP is looking pretty good. And let's go to the XRP chart. We did get a breakout from the symmetrical triangle. We've been talking about the symmetrical triangle. We're going to go from when we touch the top and the bottom. Is it $1.93? Can it go to $1.93? What is the actual target? I come in a little lower. I'm a 189 guy, 189, but 190 XRP. You might see XRP flirting with that $2 level sooner rather than later. So if you are holding that asset, just keep an eye out on that. TJ, I know you love talking XRP, so that one is looking pretty good. Interesting stuff with oil. I've seen your guys' chat. You've been talking about a few of you asking about the oil options. What's going on with oil? Did you see, TJ, that the Strait of Hormuz didn't close because of missiles? It closed because 7 insurance companies filed some paperwork. Now, we shouldn't be so cavalier with the human lives of the people on these tankers. It's a little dark when you think about it. Like, well, if the boss man says there's no insurance, we're not going to stop you. It isn't about your life of our employees that matters. It's whether or not we can underwrite the tanker, the oil inside the tanker. It's a little dark when you start, pulling on that thread, but it does look like Trump is forcing the DFC, the Development Finance Corporation, to provide at a reasonable price political risk insurance for all maritime trade. Did get a little bit of pressure on the oil futures, but still deep in the green. We got in at $1. And TJ, I sold after the stream, caught the top yesterday. It was price of 710. I asked for 680, bid filled at 680. I basically I took some profits near the top on the oil options. We did share that. So just, be mindful. I am taking profits on this. Polymarket, speaking of the Middle East, they had a bet on whether or not there was going to be a nuke detonating before June 30th. But Polymarket has now removed the contract related to the nuclear explosion after negative public reaction. I agree with this. They should not be having that bet. What do you think?
Yeah, that's an interesting take. I mean, obviously that's the whole point of prediction markets is, or their whole marketing is bet on anything. But it can get,
it can incentivize negative behavior.
Sure, absolutely. And, I don't know what the size of that market was. I'm sure that was just a strategy play of like, oh, hey, there's $10,000 or $50,000 in this market. It's really not worth it for us to have any kind of negative PR backlash. But I did see that news. And if you guys aren't following the Discover Crypto X account, make sure to do that. Just go type Discover Crypto on X. We did cover that insurance related news of what was going on with the Strait of Hormuz and having it wasn't technically closed, but Iran was more or less saying, hey, we're going to destroy anything that tries to go through there. The insurance providing companies were out of London. They kind of pulled all their support. Trump came in and said, we'll do it and we'll personally escort things through. Still very touch and go, because insurance is just a very mathematical game. And just because we say that we're going to be escorting people through doesn't necessarily mean companies will insure it, or doesn't necessarily mean the tankers will go through without insurance. But That obviously will have a dramatic impact on the price of oil. I do think the price of oil could be very volatile over the next couple weeks until a lot of this stuff settles down. I want to say what I saw this morning was around 70, 74.
I was looking. I didn't see a post, but yeah,
It's
make
a
sure you're
retweet.
following Discover Crypto.
It's there. Keep going. We just post a lot. It'll be. It was after that one you were just on. It was from yesterday. We did it yesterday morning. So.
Okay. So it'll be right above 20 hours.
So there's there's Trump.
That's it right there.
There's him
so
saying
it's just a
it.
repost. Oh,
Yeah, and then if you go a little bit further down, there's a full breakdown. Keep going of there you go. I think that's it.
Okay,
if you read that whole thing. That's a great post that kind of explains all of it. So we don't just tweet only ourselves, but if you're up to date with that, I mean, it's going to get you up to date with all sorts of different information and how it works, and whether it's news, whether it's crypto. I mean, obviously, mostly what we cover on there is Bitcoin, macro news, and DeFi. So I will
say there is a very, very positive sign. Tel Aviv stock market, a new all-time high today. I'm not even trying to be funny. I think this is actually a pretty decent indicator of, is things going to get a little more heated or are things potentially cooling down? The markets are liking what they're seeing over there in Israel. So, if anyone has inside info, it's going to be the stock guys over there for the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. I almost hesitate to show this one. Now, I do want to touch on this. You guys in the Dennis comments are absolutely insane, unhinged takes. Yes, reminded me of that Jerry Seinfeld episode. Not going to get into it. That's Walter White, by the way. It's one of his first roles.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Yeah, young Brian. Actually, Bryan Cranston looks the same. He's like Paul Rudd.
The only difference is the hair.
There's other episodes where he has a beard. It looks real weird. This is almost art. Did you see this viral post? It's the point of view of a crypto bro approaching a girl at a bar.
Okay.
This, folks, this is hang this in the Smithsonian. I was going to say something about Nick DeMonte. This is like it's a little bit of a fan fiction, but it's a fascinating read here. Just met a cute girl at a wedding. Like actually cute, objectively dangerous face card. We're talking vibes, immaculate. She's laughing at my jokes. She touched my elbow. I'm in my bag. I'm aura farming effortlessly. Then crypto gets brought up and she says, I trade. My ears perked up. I played it cool. I said, oh, nice. What do you trade? She said, mostly altcoins. That's where a normal person would say cool and then gotten her number. But I'm not a normal person. My brain instantly went into terminal mode and I said, well, what's your all-time P&L? She looked confused. I kept going. Realize or unrealize? Spot or perps? What's your max leverage? What's your liquidation history? What's your risk per trade? Do you even use stops? Or are you one of those conviction people? She laughed nervously and said, just kind of by dips. Oh, I said, on what time frame? She said, when it looks low. So you don't actually trade crypto. The vibe, it was gone. Just vanished, nuked. Full liquidation candle in the 1 minute. Her friend pulled her away. She didn't look back. I'm standing there alone at the wedding, holding a drink. I wasn't even simping, doing mental math on whether her portfolio is just 80% memes, 20% cope, and 100% exit liquidity. My friend walked over and said, bro, she was into you. What happened? I said, oh, she says she's a trader and then described buying whatever's trending on TikTok. My friend said, so I'd rather die alone than let a casual spot DCA moonbagger think we are the same species. She had a pretty face, but a disgusting cost basis. And I simply can't overlook that. Could add her number, but she knows I respect market structure. And honestly, that's worth more.
And the irony, that was good. And the twist, she's outperforming that guy. Yeah. Because ironically, that happens more than you think. Like, I don't know, it looked like it was down, so I bought some, and I don't know, above 100K seemed like a good time to sell, so I sold some. And I've seen, like, that's kind of how my sister's done it. She's bought the bottom and sold the top on Bitcoin multiple times. My wife was telling me, like, I don't know, it seems, you sure you don't want to sell a bunch of crypto at 125? And it's like, no, I'm in the only, accumulate Bitcoin, never sell, borrow against it camp, which I did do that. Less tax hits there, but ironically, some of those very casual traders that just kind of like, I don't know, buying right now this year and then selling when it's above 100K, like they perform very well. Sometimes.
Speaking of irony, I like this unironic take. I have done this. I learned never explain my meme coins on a date. Oh God, dude, really?
Yeah, if you're a meme coin trader
and there's a dog, no.
Yeah, if you're a meme coin trader, you're probably you probably are the exit liquidity. There's like out of I think out of 100 meme coin traders I've met, there's really only like 1 or 2 that have actually made some serious profit, and the rest are either down bad or lying and cap hoping.
All right. Well, everybody smash that like button on the way out. We do appreciate it. Everybody in the Disco fam, big shout out to Chris. Make sure you check out Bitcoin RA. If you're going to the Bitcoin conference, save money. Code DISCOVER on there, and make sure you're using cold storage. Keep it safe, because otherwise LAPD, they might knock on your door, folks, and no one wants that. All right, that's all we got. I will see you folks.
Leave us your best comment for a meme. If you're a meme coin trader, ... you fill in the bank. The Green Day Profits was. If you're a meme coin trader, you probably still live with your parents. See you guys at the top. We just wanted to take a quick second to shout out our sponsor, Arculus. They are a cold storage hardware wallet, helps you secure all of your digital assets for the future. Just tap this thing to the back of your phone and boom, you're in. We wouldn't be able to do this without them, but also wouldn't be able to do this without you guys, the Disco fam. You've supported us a lot over the years. If you want to support the channel now, just use the code DC20. It gets you 20% off this card. It's the #1 way you can support this channel going forward. Thank you for your support. We'll see you at the top.